Hello and welcome to our Maundy Thursday reflection. The name Maundy Thursday actually comes from tonight's reading. It refers to the Latin mandatum novum, which means a new commandment. Our reading's in John chapter 13, verses 1 to 17, and then verses 31 to 35. It sandwiches the reading and slightly overlaps what we read last night. It was just before the Passover feast. Jesus knew that the time had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he now showed them the full extent of his love. The evening meal was being served, and the devil had already prompted Judas Iscariot, son of Simon, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that he poured water into a basin, and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand." "No," said Peter, "you shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no part with me." Then Lord Simon Peter replied, "Not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well." Jesus answered, "A person who has had a bath needs only to wash their feet. Their whole body is clean. And you are clean, though not every one of you." For he knew who was going to betray him, and that was why he said not everyone was clean. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. "Do you understand what I have done for you?" he asked them. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. I tell you the truth. No servant is greater than their master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent them. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them." Then to verse 31. "Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will glorify the Son in himself, and will glorify him at once. My children, I will be with you only a little longer. You will look for me, and just as I told the Jews, so I tell you now. Where I am going, you cannot come. A new command I give you. Love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, all will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." In just one short verse, John gives us a really rich background into this picture. First of all, it's at Passover, and in John's Gospel already we've seen Jesus at Passover, where he talks about, "Destroy this temple and I will rebuild it again in 3 days." And people didn't understand he was talking about his own body. And at Passover, again, he fed the multitudes, and they came after him looking for more food. And he said, "I am the bread of life." And he spoke about having to feed on his flesh and drink his blood. And it was such a hard saying to understand and to accept that many people left them. What Jesus is doing is applying Passover to himself. He is the Passover lamb. He is the sacrifice through which all people will find deliverance. And also, as part of this background, his hour has come. And as part of this background, it notes that he loved his own and is now about to show them the full extent of his love. says Jesus knew that God had given him the power and put everything under his feet. He knew that he was from God and he was going back to God. And so what would you expect the next thing to be? Probably not that he takes off his outer garment, wraps a towel around his waist and washes his disciples' feet. Although that's exactly what he does. Feet would get particularly disgusted in first century Palestine. And it was so menial a task that not even the Jewish slaves would do it. It would only have to be a Gentile slave, or a woman or a child. So the Word who was with God at the beginning, the Word who was God, has laid aside his clothes of glory and has clothed himself with humanity and come down to earth in order to wash the feet of his disciples. This foot washing is symbolic of this whole descent, where the one who rode into great acclaim on Palm Sunday is now the one who occupies the lowest rung of the household, the position of the lowest slave. And it also points forward figuratively to the cross, where through that momentous act we will all be washed. And the emphasis isn't, wow, look at that even though Jesus was God, even though he had this divine glory, he set it all aside and he came down to earth, and now he's washing feet, or even now he's gone to the very lowest depths to crucifixion on a cross. But actually, just precisely because Jesus is God is why he had to wash feet. If God was here on earth, he would be washing feet. That's where he would be. When God was here on earth, he was washing feet, and that's where he was, because Jesus reveals God's character. That's who he is, not someone who holds on to divine glory, but gives everything of himself for those he loves. Peter objects, he said, you'll not wash my feet. But when he realises that in order to follow Jesus, we must first be washed by him, he says, then Lord, wash my hands and my head as well. And what Jesus says has lots of connotations. But one of them is this, that if you have been washed by Christ, there is no need for further washing. And for all of us, the stain and the mess in our lives that's left by the things we do that are against God's will, the things we do that hurt other people, that hurt ourselves, that destroy a relationship with God, the things we do that are sin, are washed clean through Jesus' act on the cross. After doing this great act, which is a parable of what he's about to do, he then tells them to do likewise. And we are to truly follow Jesus, we are to be like him. And he says, a new commandment I give to you, love others the way that I've loved you, and by this all people will know that you are my disciples. And it's a new commandment not in words, but in mode and type and depth of love. We are to love just as Jesus loved us. So when we look at acts of Jesus' humble service, like the washing of the disciples' feet, it's not that we copy that in order to do humble acts for the sake of doing humble acts. It's because we love the people whom we are serving. And that's the way to find true life. That's the path to follow. Not just because living like that in a world where we serve others and others are serving us, and this reciprocal love is a far better world to live in. But because Jesus also said, those who love me will follow my commands. And it's through following Jesus and his example of love that we follow him through death and into eternal life. Towards the end of the passage, Jesus talks a lot about glory. He says, "Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will glorify the Son in himself, and will glorify him at once." He talks so much about glorification, so then why have we heard throughout this week that he's so troubled? Jesus knows the path that his glorification will take. Now he is about to show us the full extent of his love. So let's take time to pray. Open up your heart to God and ask him to fill it with love. Pray for other people who need help and think about how you might help them. The Lord bless you.